Melissa has been highly involved in the anti-pornography movement for the past 5 years. As Miss South Jordan and then as Miss Provo, she promoted her service platform, educating on the harmful effects of pornography throughout the state of Utah, and she shared her message with teens, young adults, parents, and religious and community leaders. She's a member of the Utah Coalition Against Pornography Advisory Board and is working as an intern in Washington, D.C. at the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. She is currently a senior at BYU studying human development and nonprofit management. The panel members over here, first we have Candace Goodrich. She was born and raised in Kearns, Utah, but prefers the warmth of St. George, where she lived for 9 years and attended Dixie State University. She has worked for LDS Family Services for 5 years and is entering the Family Life program at USU this summer with the goal of becoming a family life educator. Candace has volunteered with UCAP for the past 3 years and is passionate about educating others on the harmful effects of pornography. Her goal is to teach young single adults about healthy family relationships and how to overcome pornography addictions before starting a family. Alex Theobald recently graduated from BYU, where he studied philosophy and social entrepreneurship. He has worked in both corporate and nonprofit sectors, and for the past year volunteered with UCAP as a young single adult advocate, hosting discussions regarding how to talk about pornography while dating, and training peers to host discussions of their own. He currently works for New Haven Residential Treatment Center and will begin graduate studies in marriage and family therapy at Utah State University this fall. Chrisanna Finley grew up in Sandy, Utah, and attended Brigham Young University, where she completed a double Bachelor of Science in Neuroscience and Family Life. During her studies, she found her passion for social issues as club officer and president of Unraveling Pornography, where she organized campus 5K races and worked with local researchers and grassroots organizations to provide education, awareness, and resources to students. She moved to Washington, D.C. in May of 2015 to intern for the National Center on Sexual Exploitation as a government relations intern and became a full-time staff member soon after. We are so lucky and honored to have all of these people here today, so I will turn the time over to them so they can get started.
Thank you, Taryn. And thank you all for coming. This room has 600 people in it. And I was just reminiscing about 5 years ago is when I graduated from high school and I had just won the Miss South Jordan pageant. And this issue was just a tiny little baby. No one was really talking about it. And it's something that I was passionate about and wanted to talk about, and I never imagined 5 years later when I'm graduating from college that I would be speaking to 600 people who care just as much. So I want to thank you all for coming out because you care and because you want to make a difference. And I'm really grateful for this very qualified panel we have to have this discussion with today. So today what we want to do is empower you with knowledge and help you understand how to apply the principles we're going to be talking about today in order to make a difference in your families, in order to make a difference in your communities. And so it doesn't have to be something official like, working for the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. This is something that you can do in your homes. This is something you can do among your friends. So we're going to show you how. So who we're going to be talking about today are, it's not changing. Oh, there we go. Okay. So millennials. There's been so much research done on millennials specifically because we, 16 through 34-year-olds, are so different than any of the previous generations. So a lot of the information I'm going to go through today has to do with millennials specifically and the research done on millennials. So Elder Holland tapped into this research study and addressed it in his address in the beginning, but I just wanted to go over some of these. Young adults were the most likely to think that porn is good for society. When they talk about porn with friends, 95% of young adults said they do so in either neutral, accepting, or in an encouraging way. And young adults viewed not recycling as more immoral than viewing pornography. And so this is why we need to reach out to young adults as young adults, because this is the culture that we're growing up in, and this is the culture that our peers think is acceptable. And so something else, in our more immediate culture, right here in Utah, it's a lot more religious. And the more religious you are, the higher chance that you will think that pornography is unacceptable. But millennials are least likely to identify with a religion. And so as we see that trend, we'll see more people being more acceptable of pornography. And so One of the first points I want to make, and the assets that we have as millennials, is that millennials are educated. We're the most educated generation in the history of Western society. And so education is the mother of leadership. As you become more educated on these topics and on issues relating to pornography, you will naturally be seen as a leader in this movement. And so what I've done throughout my life is just become more educated on the issue of pornography. And so something that is so important to understand about our culture is that when people aren't educated is when they fear. When people aren't educated is when they are judging of other people. And so one trend that we see in our society right now is that there is a stigma against addicts, that they're seen as perverts, that they're seen as people who are going to be harmful, or it's especially, I think, as among young women, is that I've heard a lot that I will never marry someone who has had an issue with pornography addiction. And so that's a trend that we're trying to change, because when you're educated on how addiction recovery works, when you understand the way that it affects your mind and how you can unravel that, then you're more accepting and more able to work with people going through these kinds of things. And so I want to turn this first question over to the panel. How has being educated helped you to become more compassionate for people who are going through a pornography addiction or who have loved ones who are going through a pornography addiction?
Sure. Well, as mentioned before, I've been working for LDS Family Services for about 5 years, and for as long as I can remember, I've been trying to educate myself on the harmful effects of pornography. So as I have people call into my office that are seeking help for their addiction on whatever level it is, I feel so much compassion for them because they are trying to get the help that they need. Sometimes I feel like I just want to crawl through the phone and give them a hug and just let them know that everything is going to be okay and that they can have hope and that there are professionals out there and that they're calling and seeking them right then, that will be able to assist them in the journey of trying to get help.
All right, I'll go ahead and speak. Can you hear me, kind sir? Is this good? Okay, thumbs up in the back? Oh, getting some thumbs down. How's this? All right, there they are. Okay, just have to eat the microphone then. So my story begins at a young age. So I'm recovering from a compulsive use of pornography, and I learned about how to have self-compassion. And that was a long journey for me, because a lot of it was affecting my own self-worth. And I'm going into marriage and family therapy for the sake of bringing that compassion to the lives of others. And I think once you're able to kind of grapple with this idea that sometimes we give a mythical power to pornography, where it's unconquerable, and once you see an image, it stays with you forever. I mean, I don't remember every movie I've ever seen when I was 7, right? It's like, memories don't work that way. But somehow we hold on to these extremely strange notions about the power of pornography, and they rail on us. And so my hope is turning towards those that use and are affected by those that use, and helping just identify what the lies are in the problem, so that we can more fill the culture with what's actually working, what's true about how to overcome this. And I think that's how education can empower any individual on either side of the problem.
Thank you. Again, my name is Chrisanna. My story also begins quite young, but I feel like I really got into starting to become educated on pornography as a college student because I felt like it was such a taboo topic on my campus, and also just religiously. I felt like it was difficult for people to talk about. They wanted to, but they didn't know how, and it was really uncomfortable. And so as I've become educated, I feel like what I've learned is that pornography is personal. It's personal for all of us, and we are personally educated in our experiences from the people that we know who are suffering with it, or that we ourselves are suffering with it. And so that's the biggest thing I've learned. And through learning that every person is affected, that has increased my compassion. Having people call into our organizations who are just pleading for help, they don't know where else to go. I've met survivors of either sex trafficking or being involved with pornography or prostitution, and hearing their stories have blown me away. And it's so vital to become educated about the issue of pornography, but also to understand the links and how pornography feeds the demand for sex trafficking, for pornography, for addictions, for the destruction of families. And as I've understood and as I've come to learn those connections, I've been able to be more of a voice to the people around me and to help them see what's really going on. What is the reality of our society? What is really going on? Because sometimes we live in our world, we have the blinders on, or we live in our bubble, and we are unaware that of the permeation of pornography and the sexualization of our society. And that is one of the missions that we have at the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, is to really bring out the knowledge to all of you and to really the world, and to help enable all of you to be a voice and to help counter this problem.
Thank you so much. To add to the discussion about increasing compassion as you become more educated, something that was really helpful for me in learning about all of this and learning about how addiction works, I was able to, and have been able to, have conversations with friends who are suffering from addiction. And so it's been really amazing to see how, because I understand it, because people know that I understand it, because the way I talk about pornography is not a way that is judgmental, I've had really good friends, and I'm particularly thinking of both a guy and a girl, and on separate occasions they came to me and told me that this is something that they were suffering with. And I was so grateful that when they talked to me about this issue that they wanted to confide in me, that it was a non-issue, that this was something that I could help support them in, and that this was something I wasn't going to judge them in, and the reason that they felt comfortable was because they knew I was educated. And you'll find that people won't disclose this, this extremely personal experience that they're having to someone who's not going to understand. And so as we increase that understanding, as we're able to understand that better, we'll be able to disclose that to each other, we'll be able to support each other in that fight. So, Christina.
Quick comment. I would just really add on to that. The more you're educated, the more open people are with you on the subject. I've had so many experiences, similar experiences like that, where I've had both strangers and friends come to me asking about pornography and how to deal with it, how to respond to it, how to recover from it. I spoke with a girl our age. Well, I wouldn't say our age, so we're all pretty variety of ages here. But it was only 2 weeks ago, I was taking the bus I live in Arlington, Virginia, and there was a girl that was reading Game of Thrones, which I don't know if you're aware of that show, but it is extremely violent, and it's a show that is very focusing on rape and incest, and because people watch it for the plot and the character development, but it's an extremely violent and graphic show, even though it's really popular. So she's reading the book, and it took a lot of courage. But because I've done research on how that's affecting increasing rape myths and desensitizing our society even more, I was able to talk to her, and I asked her, so how do you like the book? And she said, oh, it's pretty interesting, there's good character development, and I decided to read it because I watched the show, and I didn't want to ask her the question like, oh, so you're pro-rape? Like, that wouldn't be the best question to ask her, even though I kind of wanted to, and I said, I was really honest and open with her, and I expressed to her, I said, well, I'm actually quite against the show and the book. And she said, oh, really? Like, why? Tell me why. And just explaining to her some of the information that I told you. And she was so fascinated and interested both in our work at the National Center on Sexual Exploitation and our mission to defend human dignity and fight all forms of sexual exploitation, But she was so interested. She wanted more. She wanted information, and that is something so important for all of us to know, that our peers and all of our social circles, they want the information. They want to talk about it. And as you are educated and that you have that background and that knowledge, that gives you power, and that will enable you to really open up the conversations that people want to have, but they just don't know where to go for it.
Perfect. Yeah, so just being a leader in the movement because you're being educated. Awesome. Going on to, well, we're talking about becoming educated. Well, how do we become educated? Where do we go to find these resources? Well, you're here at the biggest conference that I know of that addresses this topic. So you are people who want to make a difference, and you're in the perfect spot for that. And there are so many resource booths upstairs that I want to encourage you to visit. Pick up the paperwork that they have, the different pamphlets, the different things that are available for you to educate yourself. And here's just a few of the many resources available. Sign up for newsletters to know what's going on in the movement, to know what's going on in our country regarding this issue. And so you can go to any of these websites, again, just go upstairs to the resource booths and look at what's available, know what kind of technology is available to help families, to help with filtering of internet and things like that. And so becoming educated through these resources is the best way. Does the panel have any other thoughts on becoming educated in the resources?
Well, I just wanted to say that I've been involved with the Utah Coalition Against Pornography for 3 years now. And when I first went, it was 3 years ago, in St. George, and I think there were about 10 people there that were my age. And I can't tell you how discouraging that was for me, because I've been so passionate about this topic for so long that I said something to UCAP about that. And I said, we've got to have more resources for young single adults. So I just want to say, thank you so much for being here today. And Melissa's right, there are so many resources available now. There's absolutely no reason not to get an education. And those booths are a great place to start. But if you don't start there, there's so many more. And people can be a great resources, like we talked about. We've become resources because of the education that we've received.
And if I can just add on to both of their comments previously, if I can kind of shape a direction for anybody in the audience that's asking personal questions, because obviously you're here for a reason. You have relationships with people that matter to you and are close to your heart, and that are probably affected by this. Statistically speaking, that's probably the case. So I'll try to be sensitive in addressing this, but there are two sides to this, and I think looking at it in this way can help each of us gain a whole education. I feel like sometimes there are people that are really well educated on how damaging pornography is, but they miss the education on how healing works. And then there are people that are really they understand a lot about how healing works, but miss the damage. And there's a lot of work to be done on both sides. And so as you're approaching this, be looking for information if you're kind of on, maybe a phase of trying to wake up someone that doesn't think they have a problem, and so you're looking for more information on damaging. For everything you get in damaging, also look at how healing works, because in due time, that person's going to want to know how to heal. If you're trying to help someone heal and they're feeling just lots of shame, there are lots of resources to turn to learn how to develop self-compassion and work on other parts of their therapy, other resources, other professionals that are, their whole work is to help people work through the complicated issues surrounding this. So just being educated on both sides of how damaging pornography can be and where it's at and how the problem works, and then also understand how the solution works. Both things are absolutely essential.
Perfect. Thank you. We're going to head on to the next section. But in talking about getting educated, you can also sign up on all of these Facebook pages and different Twitter accounts and Instagrams. And that's another way to get educated. And that transitions not into a section that I thought we were going to. But millennials have purchasing power. We're not talking about social media yet. But the purchasing power of millennials is huge, and I want to talk today about how you as consumers can make a huge difference in what companies are providing for their consumers. And so, why do millennials care why do companies care what millennials think? Last year, millennials overtook baby boomers as the largest living generation, and millennials are projected to spend $200 billion annually starting next year in 2017, and $10 trillion in their lifetime. So companies want to know what millennials are looking for. They want to know what you want to buy. And there has been so much research done on marketing to millennials specifically on how to get you to buy their products. So what they want to know is what you want. So you need to let them know the things that you approve of as far as like the messages of their marketing. The things is that in some cases pornographic, or making references to things like rape or things that are inappropriate. And so it's important for us to speak up when we see things in our communities and at large that are against our values and standards. And so a statistic is that for every customer that complains, there are 26 that remain silent. And so you going in and talking to a store about the magazines that you don't like to see at a child's level that are pornographic in nature, you represent at least 26 other people that feel exactly the same way. And I would argue that it's even more than that. And so you have a huge ability to make a difference. And then this quote from Edmund Burke that I really love: "All that is necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." So if you say nothing, then nothing's going to happen, and there are voices that are shouting and approving of these different things, and if we don't take a stand, and if we're not the ones that are going to stand against inappropriate content and things that are going to damage our culture and our society, then no one's going to. And so I wanted to ask our panel if they have ever had any experiences or know of any experiences where you've spoken up to a company or done something to let them know how you feel about something that's going on in their store or in their advertisements.
I'll share a story. This is in high school, and it was for an English class. Had an advertising assignment, and the professor asked us to bring in a variety of different advertisements so that we could analyze marketing messaging. And he brought in some sample advertisements, and one of which was very pornographic in nature. And I asked him if the principal knew what was being showed in the classroom, and he said he didn't care. And so I just left and went to the principal's office and told the principal what was being shown in his classroom. And the teacher apologized. The class saw the dialogue. They noticed what happened. And people came up to me afterwards and said, "Thanks for expressing that." And I guess that's an old story from high school days. I'm pulling back from the dusty library shelves at this point. But something more relevant would be talking to friends about how to discuss pornography and dating. It's not a store, it's not a commercial event, it's not purchasing power, but it does affect a culture. And just being open when discussions come up, instead of being shy to change the subject because someone said sex or porn, really being curious and asking what's going on, discussing the conversation, being calm and safe, being a place where people can come to you and talk, I think is vital. So and through your actions, I think you'll be able to build a pretty strong reputation of being a resource.
Excuse me, this is something that actually from seeing Melissa's slideshow that I thought I need to work on this, because I'm pretty outspoken on the topic, but I don't know if I am with my purchasing power. And I used to work in a tanning salon like 5 or 6 years ago, and there were pornographic pictures on the wall in nature, and I have thought about it to this day that I should have said something because I worked there and I didn't. And so now that I am still involved in this movement and seeing this slideshow and this slide specifically, I've thought there are things I can say and things that I can do. So I'm gonna go out with you and start speaking up more. But on a smaller scale, in regards to things like TV shows, it's something that I am willing to speak up about to my friends. If there's a television show that speaks really casually about pornography and about sex, I am not afraid of saying to my friends, I don't want to watch that show because of that. And it's opened a lot of doors for me to have conversations with people about it. And so I think that's a window or an avenue that we can use when we're bringing up this topic and we're talking to other people about it. So
And then to Christina specifically, I wanted to ask her about the Dirty Dozen campaign that the National Center on Sexual Exploitation does every year. So I'm going to let her introduce that and talk to you about how you can be more involved in this campaign and actually have some action items that you can do to speak up to companies.
Okay. Thank you so much. I hope I can adequately articulate what this is and what you really can do. This is so powerful. So if you have your conference pamphlets, books, the Dirty Dozen list and all the information about it is on the last page. Yes, sorry. So the Dirty Dozen list is the top 12 facilitators of sexual exploitation. These companies or organizations, whether government or corporate, through our intense research we've found are either profiting or pandering or protecting directly pornography's distribution, consumption, and production. And some of these people on this list you may see as a surprise, and some others you're like, oh yeah, definitely. And I just want to highlight Amazon, American Library Association, Amnesty International, which is supposed to be a human rights organization, but they are currently for the full decriminalization of prostitution, which only gives power to the sex buyers and sex industry. And I could go on, but I will continue. Backpage.com, which is basically an online Craigslist for sex trafficking and prostitution. They are currently in a lawsuit, and that's happening this weekend in Washington State. Cosmopolitan Magazine is basically a teen pornographic magazine, and they've written articles about how they think sexting is beneficial, and they have recently cited that one of the most violent pornography sites is moral and ethical, they said. Department of Justice. They are currently refusing to enforce current federal obscenity laws, which is it is against federal law to distribute and consume hardcore pornography, which we obviously see all over our society. So we are working with them to enforce those laws. HBO, which I kind of talked about before, just their shows, especially Game of Thrones. Sexpresso cafes is something that's kind of new. But it's basically a strip club coffee type of service that is growing in Washington State and Oregon. Snapcash and Snapchat. Snapcash is linked to Snapchat. It is basically, I don't know if you've heard of Venmo, but it's a way that you can transfer funds to different users in exchange for explicit videos or photos, which is vastly pervasive with Snapchat, and with our research, we've found that that's the only use that it's currently having. Starwood Hotels, we've removed all on-demand pornography from Starwood Hotels resorts, and also this past year, Hilton and Hyatt and Intercontinental Hotels Group. So this is totaling over 2 million hotel rooms that will no longer have on-demand pornography available, and we're really excited about that. Thank you. Also, Verizon, it profits from sexual exploitation by providing pornography in multiple ways as their internet service provider, pay-per-view movies, and dedicated channels and wireless carrier. And they have defended child-themed pornography as a benefit to their consumers, and of YouTube, of course, enables multiple sharing. So this is our Dirty Dozen list for 2016, and we really have so much strong momentum and power, and we want you to help us change these policies with these organizations. And each of these, with this campaign, we have hashtags, we have graphics that you can share and really get on social media and help other people become more educated. And we've had incredible success with major corporations, but we know that it's only through the supporters and people like you that we can make this happen. It's through you sending emails, sending petitions that really make their heads turn and say, oh, this is an issue. And then we meet with those corporate leaders and we educate them, and then we help change their policies. So it's an incredible work, and we really want you to jump on board. And For more information, you can go on our website and you can subscribe and follow us, because throughout the year we will be having more focused campaigns against these different organizations. Just a past week or two, we started a petition against Verizon to get out of the pornography business, and within 24 hours we had 5,000 signatures, and we're now almost at 10,000. And so it'll be posted again, and we really welcome the opportunity for you to join on. So.
Perfect. Yeah, that was great.
Great.
Yeah, and so just being able to, if you go to the website for Dirty Dozen, you can go and you can look at these different companies and see who you can email. You can email their executives. You can sign these different petitions, and that's something you can do really quickly, and it's a big way for you to make a difference. And so finally, I guess this is my favorite section, is that millennials are tech savvy. And I've been like wanting to skip ahead to this, I guess. But this is something that really defines our generation, and we've been called digital natives. And it's something that we've grown up with our entire lives. I can't remember a time when I didn't have the internet or a computer at my disposal. And so it's been really amazing to see, I'm sure, you know, my parents yesterday, my brother asked Siri a question, and my mom was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you can even do that. And it's just like something so surprising that is so natural for us. And so using social media to help spread this message, to speak up and change the culture, we've kind of had some commentary on that earlier from our panel about how using social media can help make a big difference. And so some statistics specifically about how millennials use social media and why this is a significant way to make a difference is that 88% of millennials get news and information from Facebook. 50% of millennials get news and information from Instagram, and 33% of millennials get news and information from Twitter. So I want to do just like a group survey, and how many of you have a Facebook page? Just raise your hand. How many of you have an Instagram account? How many of you have a Twitter account? Right? And so the information that you would put out there on social media is reaching these people on these different platforms. And something really powerful is that an average of 35% of your Facebook friends see your posts. And so what you put out there is reaching people. So you have 1,000 friends on Facebook, 350 people will see that post. These are some people that I have personally been able to talk to about some posts that I made that have affected them. And a good friend of mine, Joni, she's here today. She said, hey, I just wanted to thank you for posting about the UCAP conference next month. I only knew about it because of you. So thanks for opening your mouth. It will make a big difference in mine and my fiance's life. And so had I not posted on Facebook about that, maybe Joni and her fiance wouldn't be here. Where's Joni? Well, she told me she'd be here, but maybe she wasn't able to make it. So Joni is here in spirit today. And then, Parker, are you here? Parker, yeah. So Parker wrote me, and he said, it was your work on educating people about the harms of pornography that inspired me to do a whole school project which has subsequently changed my views on it from being just a moral wrong to a literal drug as capable as meth, cocaine, etc. So if your goal was to positively change people's views on the vile drug, well, mission accomplished. And Parker just told me he's working on another project. And he said it's from the post that I made on social media. And Parker and I haven't really talked since high school, but it's from the things that you post on Facebook. Those people from high school, those people from your life that you don't really communicate with, they'll be able to see those posts, it'll make a difference in their life. How many of you saw the UCAP conference on social media, on Facebook, and were educated that way? So a good number of you are here because you saw on social media, and so that's really powerful. But I'll ask the panel in what ways, and you know, we've kind of covered it, but are there any other comments you have on social media and millennials and how they can use it to make a difference?
I'll go ahead and start. So I know there's a lot of trepidation to come off as preachy. I'll be the first one to say it, right? You don't want to be that guy. People are like, oh my gosh, him again, right? But there are ways that you can present things on Facebook and social media that send the same message. So for example, there's a great TED Talk on everything we know about addiction is wrong. See some nods? My people right here. And what that can do is open doors for opportunities to chat. And all you can say is something as simply as, hey, I saw this TED Talk, thought it was super interesting, and I really liked it. Doesn't have to be preachy, doesn't have to be over the top, you don't have to give your whole life story, you don't have to open up skeletons, right? But what that does is people are saying to themselves as they see that, oh, this person thinks about that, this person's interested in that, and I have a relationship with them, and I can probably approach them and talk to them if needed, and that'll start conversations.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a few examples actually, and going right along with what Alex said is, you can tell people you're just getting educated yourself, so you're not trying to preach, but you're trying to learn, and this is a way you're learning, and you want to share what you're learning with other people, and become a resource to other people. So I have a friend that I want to quote actually her Facebook post, so you get an idea of maybe something that you could say, and she told me that I could share this with all of you. Her name's Tamara Hyde, and she shared a video of Russell Brand talking about the dangers and the harms of pornography. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's actually really, really cool. And to see a celebrity come out and say, this is an issue. So she said, the one thing that has kept me from being totally fangirl in love with this foxy, conscientious genius was that he was a debaucherous, womanizing philanderer. But now, he comes forth candid and contrite about the causes and the tragic effects of indulging in the objectification of people and the debasing and the cheapening of sexuality. This is a good warning from one who knows. Avoiding and combating porn isn't about being uptight, prudish, puritanical, judgmental, religious, etc. It's about the freedom from addiction, deception, distortion, and discontent. It's about keeping the ability to connect in a whole and human way. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm not that eloquent or that articulate. But it's something to think about. Like, you can say how you feel about it without necessarily coming across as, being, prudish, puritanical, judgmental, or religious. Another thing is, as I have been able to speak out about this or to talk about it with people and to be open about my opinions or my views or the education that I've received, I've seen the effect it's had even on my own family members. My sister put on Facebook the video of Terry Crews talking about the dangers of pornography, which I thought was really cool of her to be willing to put that on my Facebook page and say, hey Candace, check this out. The other thing that I wanted to share was actually something that just happened yesterday. A friend of mine posted about the Utah House of Representatives taking a stand against pornography, and I just wanted to let him know, I love that you shared that, so that's something you can do. If a friend of yours shares something on social media, let them know you appreciate it. So I said, love this post, thank you for sharing. Right after that, though, a couple of his friends said something really negative about the post, so I had the opportunity to come back and say, here's a little bit of the education I received without coming across too strong, because one of them liked what I said. So, if you're hesitant, that's okay. You can start really, really small and work your way up, and just let people know how you feel and that you're just trying to learn yourself.
Rosanna, did you have anything to add?
Sure, I think really the biggest thing I think I want to communicate is that you have the power to make a difference. The power is within you, and at least in the past 5 years as I've been growing up, going to college, I think I felt that passion within me and I felt that desire, but I didn't realize the potential and the true effect that I could have on so many people. I never dreamt that I would be now working at the National Center on Sexual Exploitation and causing such huge changes to happen in our society as a whole. But I know that each of you in this room and have that power and that potential to make that difference. And through Facebook and through social media, that we really can work together to bring tidal waves of messaging. And just one example that we have a kind of a system called Thunderclap, where we can make posts all at the same time. If you sign up, then on one day at one time, everybody makes the same post and communicates the same message. And people pick up on that, the media picks up on that, and they can see that this is an issue and that there are a vast number of supporters that are trying to get this message across and that it's something important.
Thank you very much. So social media is an extremely effective way to spread this message, and people will see you as a leader. As you start posting things about, the harms of pornography, or about your opinions on different things, or just that I'm trying to be more educated, people will know, hey, this person is constantly posting about this. I wonder if they know something about that. And you'll see that people will ask you. And I've had a lot of people come to me just from things that I posted on Facebook or on social media that they feel comfortable coming and talking to me because they, see me as someone who maybe knows something about that. And so as you do that, people will see you as a resource and be able to refer to you on some things, and you'll be able to help them. The last point I want to talk about is that millennials are team-oriented, and this is huge. It's interesting that the researchers talked about how our culture of being involved in a lot of sports teams as young kids, more so than other generations, has really helped foster this being team-oriented among our generation. And so, and things like being connected through Facebook, through social media, has really helped us to become more team-oriented. And so, I wanted to ask the panel about how using collaboration has helped them to make more of a difference than they could on their own. And I want to ask Alex specifically. Alex has done a lot of work with some dating and pornography conversations among friends. There's a document that was put out by the Utah Coalition Against Pornography, and it's currently accessible on the SA Lifeline website, but it's a whole curriculum on how to have this discussion, whether it's with a religious group or whether it's just with a group of friends, on how to talk about pornography and dating, because in our culture it is so it's such a big problem that as people are dating, they don't know how to bring this up. It's uncomfortable, it's awkward, or they don't talk about it at all, and then later on in their relationship it becomes an issue. And so I just want to ask Alex how those have gone and how collaborating has really helped that become a big success.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you. I'll start one step back. I'm LDS, and I come from an LDS background, and the majority of the information I received about pornography came from a fireside gathering where we had a bunch of people, a bunch of young single adults in a room, and you had one person on stage talking about the issue. But there wasn't really a venue for asking questions. And what would happen is our friends would go home, girls would go to their apartments, guys would go to their apartments. I'm in BYU, so we're not like everybody else. And so what would happen is girls would talk about it with their ladies, and the guys would talk about it with their boys. And we wouldn't talk together, but we all wanted to be dating each other, right? So it was like we never had the conversation that needed to happen. And I was pulled in by Missy and Vana to be part of a team that tried to initiate discussion groups. Very casual, Sunday afternoon, 10 to 15 friends in a house with soup and chips, and you talk about porn and dating, right? Really casual, trying to keep it as calm and cool as you possibly could. But the idea was, to open up the can of worms that we all know exists, because if we let it sit, the problem isn't going to be taken care of. And the first discussion group, we kind of hand-selected some friends that we knew were posting about this stuff on social media and had experience, and they all came. The next time, the first time there was about 15 to 20 people. That next discussion group we had, there was 30 people, most of which who had no idea what they were getting into. And the next time we rolled through, and there was, it grows and grows, and to a point where we had to snowball and say, okay, we have to keep this somewhat exclusive, because there is a demand. People are hungry to know. And if you can open up your home, and honestly, my effect is hey, look, I'm going into this professionally, but you don't have to in order to host a conversation about this. You just have to, know something and ask and know how to ask good questions and then talk about it. Our conversations are very principled based. I don't stand up here like today and tell you my experience. I go in with an open mind and with some questions based off of some basic principles that I think are important for relationships to develop. Namely, there needs to be hope, there needs to be trust, and there needs to be truth, and there needs to be love. And so every time a conversation would start polarizing towards antagonizing or resentful comments, or shaming or hurtful or judgmental comments, I'd bring it back to those principles and ask, where's the trust, where's the love, where's the truth, and how do we develop it in our relationships around this conversation around pornography, and what do we do about it? And the response has been tremendous. There is more hope in the rising generation of millennials than I think we give ourselves credit for. So many of us don't think that we can do this. And that's a bold-faced lie. we can overcome this collectively and individually. And we need to start acting like that. So open up to your friends. Be willing to spare a few bucks for some soup and chips to talk about what you learned this weekend. And I promise you that you will be more warmly received than you are anticipating.
Perfect, thank you so much. And I've been able to be a part of some of those conversations, and the way that it works is that a guy and a girl will come together, they'll invite both of their friends, and so you just have a good mix of people there. You tell them what you're going to be talking about, and the great thing about this material is that it takes you through these different questions. You don't have to make this up. It takes you through and you just kind of pose different questions, and as I've done it with Alex, it's been amazing to see that you ask a question and everyone has something to say. Everyone wants to talk about it. And so it's amazing to finally have something tangible that we can use in order to have these conversations. And so that's been a really powerful tool and something I encourage you to look up.
Yeah. And just to echo that template, it is important to have a guy and a girl host a discussion together. That unity of both demographics being represented is essential to overcoming this together, collectively. Oh, so you can find the link on the Utah Coalition Against Pornography, and I think it's on SA Lifeline. If you were to Google UCAP pornography and dating, it should be one of the first PDFs to come up. I know Googling pornography is dangerous, but if you use it with Utah Coalition Against Pornography, you're usually safe.
Yeah, a safer way. If you just go to the SA Lifeline under resources for young adults, you'll find that material there. So you can print that off and use that in your discussions. So we want you to be safe. So a quote that I found is that it is extremely important that we work together to make the seemingly impossible possible. And so when I was in high school, the way that I got involved in this whole anti-pornography discussion and movement is when I was in high school, there was a teacher, I was a junior, there was a teacher that was fired because he was doing pornography on his computer. And so suddenly, students never openly talked about pornography, but suddenly I was hearing conversations that, pornography is not even bad, or, pornography is wrong, which is what I believed, but I couldn't believe that students were talking together that pornography was acceptable. And so I wanted to help educate them because I had seen the harmful effects of pornography in the lives of people I really loved, and I'd seen it affect people I love a lot, and so I wanted to let them know, this is why it's wrong, but I only had my moral beliefs of why it was harmful. And so I wanted to know the science behind why it was harmful. I wanted to have something else to tell my peers. And so that summer I went to a student government conference up at USU, at Utah State, and Fight the New Drug was there, and they were just teeny little organization, 5 guys that were really passionate about this, and they had their contact cards that said Fight the New Drug, and so I walked over to their table and said, who are you guys and what do you do? And they said, oh, we're Fight the New Drug. We educate students on the harmful effects of pornography using science. And I just thought, you are exactly who I'm looking for. And so it's because of Clay Olson that I'm standing here today, because I found Fight the New Drug and I found these resources and I started to become educated, and it was something that was really important to me. And so I think each of us is here today because we have personal experiences with people that we love, or personal experiences ourselves of seeing firsthand the harms of pornography and even just the harms in society. And as we become more educated, as we become more willing to talk about this in our relationships, more willing to be open about this topic, then we will have such a huge influence in our communities, in our culture, among young adults. And I think it's extremely important too that we communicate this peer-to-peer, because we've seen the models that of, like grandma and grandpa talking about how pornography is bad. It just doesn't work that way. And it's really important that we start these conversations with the people that are around us who are our age, because that will really help influence our culture and the future of this movement. And I would have never imagined, I really hoped, but I just didn't know when we were going to see things like Utah finally passing or stating publicly that pornography is a public health crisis. And so that to me is amazing. I did a research project a couple of years ago on that issue and just thought there is so much that has to happen in order for this to happen. And we just saw that happen just just this last week, and so that's historical and amazing. And so it's because of people like you who care, and they're not professionals in this movement. They're not therapists. They're not, some of them are, but the majority of the people in this movement are people who care and people who want to talk about this and people who want to make a difference. And so that's you guys, and I want to commend you for being here today, and thank you so much for your time. And we have about 10 minutes left. And so I want to do a Q&A. If there's any of you who have a question for our panel, something on your mind that you would like to ask, you can come up to the mic and we'd love to answer any of your questions. So we have about 10 minutes for that if any of you want to ask a question.
Sorry, I'm the fastest, so I get to go first.
That's in the front.
How, as a mom, do you start those conversations in a community that's small and everybody knows everybody without being the one?
Yeah.
I have an answer.
Yeah, go
So I think a lot of the parents, they're seeing this in the lives of their kids, and they're hurting too, but they don't know how to talk about it either. So I think going through the schools has been super powerful. PTSAs, as I work with PTSAs, they've been extremely welcoming and open in addressing this issue. So things like Fight the New Drug assemblies, having a parents' night where it's a specific time for you to come together and talk about this issue, or and this is just throwing this out there, but even something like getting some ladies together and with soup and chips and talking about, hey, what can we do to help our families with this? And so, yeah, Alex.
I'd also just add, being the one hurts and is vulnerable at first, definitely. But if you can execute that well, other people will also want to be the one. If they see the confidence that you carry in your motherhood and in your parentage and the hope that you have for your family, people will want to have that same thing. And so you can be a leader in that way. Being the one is a lonely thing, but if you do it well, people will want to join you. And you're not alone in that. There's lots of ones out there.
Can I really add just something really, really quick? Also, as you were talking about earlier, is that you can share what you're learning, and at least with, the apps that are going on, like Snapchat and Snapcash, other mothers want to learn. They want to know what's going on in the lives of their children. And so as you are sharing the resources that you're coming across, that will also help other people join you, because they are learning the same things you want to learn.
So I just had a question, because I've also been wanting to get involved in this and wanting to fight the new drug. And so I just wondered, what could I study, or what would be a good thing to study to get involved in that? Because right now I'm currently studying business management, but I've been thinking, what could I change to be able to get more involved in this situation?
I think one thing to know is that we need all people from all disciplines to fight this fight. And so even as studying business management, that you can use those skills to help get the word out there and have an influence upon the lives of others. I personally, I did a double bachelor's at BYU in neuroscience and human development in the family life, and I didn't expect that to be such a rich resource of where I am now, but it was just something that I was led. I was interested in learning, and that education, for me personally, has helped me understand both the physiological, neurological effects, but also the developmental effects of pornography, and getting that perspective, the multifaceted perspective on the issue. So that's just me personally, but we need everyone from all disciplines.
And just one quick book recommendation. Elder Jeffrey Holland mentioned it earlier, but He Restoreth My Soul by Dr. Don Hilton. I just highly recommend that book personally. So if you want a book to start with, look there and then look at his references and go to town, man.
And I would say for anyone else who has this question, there are so many different skills needed. Every organization needs marketing. Every organization needs businessmen. Every organization needs someone who can do fundraising. There's just so many different things. So take what you're already studying and interested in and then apply that to look in as you become more educated on these different organizations, see how you can lend your skills as a volunteer or as someone, you know, that works part-time or an internship, and see how you can benefit those organizations.
Okay, so I think that today I've learned that education is the key to having like confidence to talk out about this. But I was wondering if you guys had any suggestions of like maybe a couple different things that you could say to help change people's like perception about this, because I've just been in situations where I wanted to speak out about it, but somebody's made a comment that makes those people seem negative. Like I just had a lady say something like, "How do we protect our daughters from these men?"
Yeah.
Like, and so that honestly seriously offended me. But at the same time, I was like, well, I don't want to speak out and say, you know, this or that, because I don't want her to think badly of me or my husband or whoever, you know what I mean? And so I just want to find some comments that we could help to change people's perception of people that have a problem with this, because it's pretty much affecting everyone in this entire world. So
Yeah, that's a good question. If you don't mind. I think what you're looking for are talking points, which we have in abundance. If you go to our website, which is endsexualexploitation.org, on all of our campaigns, we have talking points about these issues, about companies, about counter arguments. You know, you're going to get backlash if you haven't already gotten it yet. Like right now, you will in the future. And so we have a whole page of certain arguments that people have positioned themselves with, and really how to respond, how to say, you know, how to communicate your certain talking points that can help change their perspective and educate them as well. And I know Fight the New Drug is also developing a similar thing as well, and so the resources are out there. So.
And I think as we have these conversations more, it becomes more natural to add, where did you go? It becomes more natural to add your commentary to this discussion. Did you know, actually, you know, like, and then you add this, you know, certain point here. And so I think having these discussions really helps you to become more eloquent in the way that you bring up those topics. And then there's the talking points online as well.
Our website is endsexualexploitation.org.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. Something that has made me a little bit hesitant to speak out on this topic is that I don't want the negative backlash and the negative stigma to be directed towards loved ones who are struggling. So how do you speak out in such a way that will not make people look towards people who are dear to you as ones who are struggling?
Like avoiding suspicion about people in your personal life?
Yeah.
So I'll tackle this one. So one thing that I would encourage is, as we start these conversations, I think one hard aspect is recognizing that there are people that, quite frankly, are not ready to hear what we have to say. But with truth, that happens. Also recognize that when people look at you and your relationship with them, and remember that as you're having these conversations, there's a lot more safety in those relationships than not. And typically people that are either uneducated or just harsh or judgmental at first, they're in pain too. And so if you can come across in a way where you're safe despite their negative reaction, you might be surprised, and you might be able to find yourself healing souls in that work.
I just want to emphasize what he said, because I think I've been in those situations where I've been too scared to say some things to some people because I'm afraid of how they're going to respond, or they're going to react negatively to maybe someone I know that's struggling. But as a result of still being open and maybe being outspoken, I've had the opportunity of having people come to me and talk to me about the issue like they've talked about before with friends, and have come to them and said, you know, because of your education or because of how open you are about it, I feel comfortable talking to you. And specifically in dating, there were several years of my life where I was like, this is a deal breaker. But because of the education I received, I don't feel that way anymore. And I had someone that I was dating several years ago come to me of his own volition and express his feelings on the topic and his involvement. And that was really refreshing to me to know that because of these experiences that I've had and the education I've received, someone was willing to come to me on their own in that type of situation and be really willing to be vulnerable and express their, express their feelings on the topic. So don't be afraid to do it, even if you do feel vulnerable at first.
Okay, I'm sorry to cut off the Q&A, but we have gone over time and we want to make sure you all get to the other classes that you're here to see. But if you have any specific questions for us, we can meet with you out here in the hallway. But thank you so much for coming, for becoming more educated and being dedicated to this cause. So thank you so much.